and today we're talking about this important topic and the one big mistake that we sometimes make that causes a ripple effect of us being undervalued in circumstances, whether it's work or relationships, friendships, family, you name it.
Achievers in box for her purpose driven, so we slay the giant of indecision.
Hello there, I am Coach Zenobia D. Williams, and if you know me from the music, our music, I am Zenobia Will, and today we're talking about this important topic and the one big mistake that we sometimes make that causes a ripple effect of us being undervalued in circumstances, whether it's work or relationships, friendships, family, you name it. Now, as we get started, let's just define for ourselves what we mean when we talk about value. Let's first of all acknowledge that every last being in the world has innate value. God created us one of a kind, irreplaceable. There's just no other you, and that is innate, grafted in, created value that no one can take away. But what we want to think about now is the other concepts of value, and I'll give you about 3 or 4, and then we'll just focus on one for the sake of this particular communication. Now, sometimes value can be instrumental value, and I have some notes here. Instrumental value is the worth assigned to someone or something based on its usefulness or benefit, right, to others. That's assigned value. Another value, conditional value, that is when it depends on you meeting a specific criteria or an achievement or some other external factor in order to be considered valuable. Or this could even be in society, like if you meet the criteria that is considered to be of the upper echelon, then you are considered of great value, right? And that changes from place to place, society and culture to culture. Now, there's also perceived value, and this is the subjective worth that others assign based on their opinions, their judgments, and their bias. All right, you will be deemed more valuable or less valuable based on their own conclusions about life and the way things should be. Now, what we're going to land on today is relational value. And this is, let me get this definition, the exact definition for you, the degree to which someone is regarded as important, needed, or appreciated within a specific relationship or group. Now, that group could be, like we talked about, family, it could be work, it could be church, it could be anything, such as a workplace, right? Or even your romantic relationship. That's relational value. How do people value or measure you in those particular dynamics, right? So when we think about relational value, let's think about that within an organization. It could be whether a person's contribution is acknowledged, recognized, and appreciated and respected. In a love relationship, it could be whether the partner feels prioritized, seen, and loved. So we just spoke about some of the ways that our value is considered, from instrumental to relational, how it is regarded and rated and perceived from the external factor. But then there's also our internal concept of value. And before we make the one big mistake that I'm going to tell you about, there are things that set us up and cause us to trip and make that mistake. One of the things that happens too often, and that is a reality for so many of us, I mean, even as we go into our 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, is that we self-undervalue. We self-undervalue. And we also lack self-awareness about the things that are most unique and most special about us when we enter into certain situations. You may be like me, where we just were not taught this type of self-awareness to understand and appreciate and to take time to assess and consider our values from place to place and circumstance to circumstance. So I'll tell you how this played out for me sometimes. I would say that I am not a good negotiator. Now, why would I say that? It's because To be a good negotiator, you have to embrace the fact that you have value. In order to sit down and one-on-one and face-to-face with someone, or maybe you may be in a large corporation, and to sit there and to face off with the CEOs and the leaders and to negotiate your value, or the fact that you want to be paid a certain amount, you have to be able to be aware of your value, be aware of the value that you're bringing within the system. And because I was not taught that type of self-awareness, I was a very poor negotiator. Let's dive into this. I don't know if that's you as well, but now we're unraveling a part of why we were not prepared and ill-equipped really to get into environments and to position ourselves so that this plague of being undervalued did not attach itself or attack us. When we consider our self-awareness, and I consider myself, I've always been humble, a humble person. And don't get that confused with boldness now. I've been bold, especially growing up as a dancer, dancing from with the ripe little age of 2 years old, and then as I got into my zone where I became able to win pageants and represent my country dancing, that was my space and my zone. And so when I would have to dance, I was bold. No one could tell me anything when I hit the stage. But when it came into situations and scenarios where somebody else got to grade me and they had the opportunity to make me feel as if I wasn't that good, then I would cower. But here is what I needed, and perhaps what you may have needed. We needed confident humility. This is understanding our strengths and our limitations. This would have been recognizing the role we play within a system or within a relationship and acknowledging our value without overestimating it and without underestimating it. That confident humility. And this is what we're going to have to develop. Some of us are overconfident, and so we need to find that balance of confident humility as we go forward, where we do not rob ourselves of our value. What sets us up for the one big mistake? Failure to assess our value, lacking self-awareness of it. And then, of course, being unable to assert it because we don't even appreciate it ourselves. And now, this is the place where my heart breaks for us, for me, when I think back on myself, being in situations, even in areas where I was volunteering, ministering, giving my heart, even in workplaces where things were playing out, where I was debating in my mind that feeling of being undervalued because of the way you were being treated, spoken to, approached, because you would observe, or I would observe, and you would see that there were certain opportunities, doors, and benefits that were available to some people. And even though you were giving all, even though you would work more hours, or in ministry you would extend yourself to weekends, you would sacrifice time, or I would, let me keep it home, sacrifice time with my child so that I can go and help people to prepare for what it is that we were doing, even when you know that you were giving your maximum. And even if you could see the beneficial results, you were not, or I was not, being valued. And I keep switching in between you and me because this breaks my heart, because I know it is the truth and the reality for so many of us. And so this lack of self-awareness, this lack of assessment as we get into these things, can cause us to make this one big mistake. What is that one big mistake? It is that we allow unconsciously others to determine our value. That is the one big mistake. The failure to assess and assert our value in our situations, circumstances, organizations, relationships, it gives off in our posture, in our attitude, in what we accept, in the way we allow things and people to speak to us or to come into anything dealing with us. It gives off, and people tag us and say, hey, they belong in this category or this one or that one. And so this breaks my heart, because far too many of us are living here in this space where we have not anchored ourselves on the truth about our value. If you are already feeling bothered, uncomfortable, you're having discomfort already about the fact that you feel unappreciated, unrecognized in certain scenarios, what should you do? Well, what you're going to do is recalibrate. That means you're going to go back and start over, sitting down and assessing your value. If it's a workplace situation, you're going to think again about how you fit into that place, about you as an individual. What are your skills? What are your expertise? How do you benefit? How are you useful? How you are important in that workplace? And you're not going to overestimate yourself, and you're not going to underestimate yourself. You are going to have confident humility and self-awareness. Whether it's a relationship, friendship, you're in the organization, you are going to assess yourself, and you are going to recognize your worth, and you are going to embrace that worth. You are going to set the necessary standards and boundaries that reflect your innate worth, but also the worth that you bring to the table. You, in spite of it all, are getting ready to once again express yourself in the highest level. The highest expression of yourself is the only thing that you are going to present and show up as going forward. Yes? The next question you may have is, well, what if the people around me, even if I make this adjustment and I show up and I assert myself based on my value, but they still don't recognize, they still do not change, they still present or approach me in a certain way, what do I do? And for that I say, alert, 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 alert. Most often and most likely, people around you are not prepared to recognize your value. Now, it's not that you're doing things looking for it, but you are in an environment, you are functioning, you are bringing usefulness to the table. You see that for other people, things happen, maybe promotions or some other form of credit is given to individuals, but you are left out. You feel like you are put in a box. You feel like they consider, when I say they, I mean the powers that be, there are certain people within the organization who, when there's a conversation of something needs to be done, they feel like these particular people have the smarts or the status to do it, and you are, although you are able, you are dismissed or ignored. The alert is, when this happens, oftentimes it is for a number of reasons. And sometimes it can be because those people really do not understand value. They don't even value themselves. They may be showing up just to get the money. They may be in that conversation with you because, or that, this, I'm talking the relationship part now, just because they think that this is what a macho man does. Or she may just be thinking, how many guys are just so attracted to me, right? But I typically speak to us ladies, but just in case we have one of the guys listening, it could be that for you. Sometimes in a workplace, there may just be this overarching mediocrity because there's been a cultivation of complacency within the organization. People just want to get paid. Friday night just got paid. That's it. And so in that environment, and you decide to recalibrate and you show up and you present at your highest expression, you may actually find that you become offensive if you get into the meeting, the organizational meeting, staff meeting, and you are suggesting, okay, what can we do? Maybe this is something we could do. You are actually may be considered offensive, and you may even be attacked because of the fact that you are vested in bringing value to a company or to the organization. You may be just like me because we understand that when we show up in a day of our lives given to us by God, we are not there for eye service of man. The word tells us that we are to work in excellence as unto God himself, period. And so if you have that mindset and you go into this environment that is already infiltrated with a mind that is for mediocrity, you may find yourself not being appreciated for your efforts. Now, if you end up in a situation like me where the work environment actually became toxic because there was no initiative for fruitfulness and productivity, and that contradicted, and I was combative in that environment because I wanted to see fruitfulness and I wanted my life and my work to matter. And so what happened was when I started to be treated in certain ways, spoken to in certain ways, rather than me doing what God said this time and praying it through, I started to resist. And I started to have an attitude, and I started to respond, and I just was not myself. My character started to change. Eventually I made an exit. Not the proper exit. I ran out of there when I started to get so stressed and feeling sick, and other things in my life felt like it was falling apart, and that was not helping. I had to go. What I suggest, and sometimes this happens, if it becomes toxic, if it becomes stressful to the point where you're actually feeling sick, you're dragging yourself to get into this environment, it may mean that you have to create an exit plan. It may mean that with all your efforts, if you are unable to feel fulfilled, if you are being attacked because of your positivity, it may mean that you have to build a bridge for which you will exit that environment that has become toxic for you. So what do we do now? Well, we do our assessment. That is the challenge that I have for you. And the next challenge is for you to show up in the highest expression of yourself. As we consider these things, I want you to tune into the next video. In that video, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write out the lyrics of a new song on camera. Together, we're going to write a song that's going to help us also have what I call music mantra. In other words, it's songs for us to not just vibe with, but to also meditate on. Songs to get us thinking, uplifting, dreaming, visualizing. I hope you would have enjoyed the song, the first song that was released on the album coming for the sole purpose, Should I Stay? I hope you go and check that out. It's an awesome song. I may even put a video at the end where I got to kind of have a little zone out with it before I started this video. So stay tuned for the next video where I will create our music mantra for this topic on screen. And the next video after that will be where I will produce and release that music for us for our music mantra library. This is music for our purpose-driven soul. And so subscribe and hit the bell so that you get the announcement every time, the notification every time we have one of these new releases that have been tailor-made just for us. The next thing is share the channel and let us all grow together. Remember, you have value. You are irreplaceable, one of a kind. You are amazing. No one can do what you do like you do it. You are valuable, and no one can take that away.
Achievers in box for her purpose driven, so we slay the giant of indecision and pursue purpose